It's the lead play in our offense.
Tell the tackle, take the defensive end if he's over him. If he's not, you drive down the first man who is inside. Pull back and tell him to take the first man outside the offensive tackle. No one goes. Go right by this and field inside. If the YN has the linebacker taken out, he cuts inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. If you look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here, and try to run this play in the alley.
Hey, what's up, gang? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. You can find me on Twitter at Packers_access. We joined alongside tonight my buddy Jacob from the Packernet Fantasy Podcast. We got Tim in Green Bay. It's official 53-man roster day, fellas. We made it. We've got a roster put together. Now, I will say this. We know all of that's going to change really, really quick in the next couple of days. There's going to be some shuffling around, right? But I do want to give a quick shout-out to Old Southern Barbecue Smokehouse, the official sponsor of Packernet Podcast. Look at that hat right there. I'm telling you, I got to get a hold of some of that merch, and we got to get our listeners some of that merch as well. So let's do this, man. Let's waste no time. Let's jump right into the 53. Just combing through the comments. We got people already commenting about it, guys. This one right here, it's spot on. This was one of my takes, Eric, and I'm going to talk about it here in a second. And there's really only one thing to say.
Oh, no, man.
That's exactly the way I feel about it. Now, listen, I'm sure he's a great guy, but that one didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So shout out to Eric. We got Zane in the chat. Let's see here. We've got Paul. We've got Blake. Man, we got a full house. Brad, Nick the Realtor in the house. Smitty, Brian W. The whole crew is here, guys. The whole crew is here. John Stroman, Elevated Shine with his patent profile pic there at Prison. Mike, you got to love that. Elevated Shine. This is for you right here,
all
my
right,
friend.
Hey. That's just the way we talk in the clink.
There you go. We're ready to roll, fellas. We are ready to roll. All right, let's get down to it. Let's talk about the offense first. That sound good, guys?
Yeah.
All right. Yeesh. Offensive side of the ball, I'm just going to kind of give a few of my takeaways, some things I'm excited about, maybe some things that I disagreed with, and we'll kind of turn it over to you guys and get your takes as well. Starting off at the quarterback position, everybody's excited about Jordan Love, obviously. He's shown quite a bit of flash in the preseason. I think he's light years ahead of where he was, the last couple of years. But the thing that really gets me excited, and I've mentioned this on this pod several times, Sean Clifford. If for some reason Jordan Love has to miss time, and I know we don't want that, if he does, I'm pretty confident that Sean Clifford, as a rookie, can step in with all that experience he's had as whatever it was, a sixth-year senior because of the COVID year in college. All the snaps he's taken significantly more snaps than Jordan Love when it comes to his football career. I think he can step in a pitch and really just kind of pitch in and provide decent football and give us some exciting play, I guess you could say. In the past we've had backup quarterbacks, not to knock them or anything, but your Tim Boyles, right, and your Deshaun Kaisers and of the world. And it's like, as soon as Aaron went down, it was like, my God, that we have no shot. With Sean Clifford, you get a little bit of that Brett Favre mystique almost, right? And I'm not trying to compare him to a Hall of Famer, but I think that's going to be something that's going to be fun to watch. At the running back position, the big shocker for everyone, Emmanuel Wilson has made the roster. This is really exciting. I'm wondering how long he'll stay on the 53. It's obvious that they were concerned that someone may try to pick him up. So that's probably why they put him on the 53 so someone else didn't grab him. But he's just very dynamic with the ball in his hands. I think he's going to be one of those backs that if for some reason, something happens to Aaron Jones briefly and A.J. Dillon, we're just running him down the defense's throat, that we have to put Emmanuel Wilson in. I think he's someone that you could, maybe if you're sitting on a lead late in the game too, just run Emmanuel Wilson behind that starting offensive line. I think it would be exciting to watch. At the wide receiver position, the thing that stood out to me was Malik Heath and Tay Wicks. We pretty much called the receiver room. Nothing surprised us there, gang. You heard our episode last night. Everything kind of fell into place. Malik Heath and Tay Wicks, to me, they provide great depth. And I know they're both very, very, very young, but they've shown enough in preseason and in training camp that I look at those two guys. Tay Wicks is already a really good route runner. You can see it on tape. The tape doesn't lie, guys. It's one thing to say, oh, well, he had a good padded stat line in a preseason game, or he made a flash catch, 1 or 2 catches in training camp. But when you watch his footwork, when you watch how he runs routes, it's exactly what Greg Cosell was talking about. Greg Cosell was just literally saying, this kid gets it. That's what stood out to me about Greg Cosell talking about Taye Wicks. So I'm excited to see those two. And Malik Heath, just one of those guys who doesn't play scared. Even as a rookie, he's going to go across the middle. He's going to take his licks, and he's going to keep on moving. Tight end, Luke Musgrave, he will be forced to fast track this year. There's no doubt about it. There's something that I've despised in the past is, it's a rookie tight end. It's a young tight end. It takes time to develop, and we got to ease them into the role. I love that Luke Musgrave is getting thrown into the fire, and he's someone who's just going to go out there and be forced to pick up this offense, be forced to win and get better. And there's going to be down moments, but there's also going to be those flash plays where he gets behind the defense, or he has that advantage over a defender, over a small DB in a one-on-one matchup. You're going to see those moments, and the question is going to be, will he rise to the occasion, or will he kind of play like a rookie? I'm excited to see how that rolls. And offensive line, Rasheed Walker and Yash, gang, that's pretty solid depth at the tackle position. Yash was a starter at right tackle last year. Now, we've seen he took a step back toward the end of the year, but I think Yash and Rasheed Walker especially, if something happens to a tackle, I feel pretty good about our backup tackle stepping in as opposed to in the past. And the one negative I will say about the offensive side, and we already kind of talked about it there with Eric in the chat. He took the words out of my mouth. Royce Newman, guys, he doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me that he's on this roster. You've seen how bad he played last year. You've seen how bad he played in the preseason. We've seen how bad he played in family night. And I don't mean to dog on the guy, but I don't understand them keeping him. With all the other guys that they have on this roster, it's like, at what point will you have to go to Royce Newman, right? You've got a 3rd-round pick in Sean Ryan, which people at training camp have reported that he's looked a lot better this year than last year. You've got a little bit of depth there. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me to keep Royce Newman. So offensively, Jacob, what sticks out to you the most, man?
Yeah, obviously it's got to be the Wilson. I was a little bit surprised that we kept 11. I was talking about how we could get away with something crazy like keeping 8 if we wanted to mandangle, like you said, maybe doing some weird kind of back alley moves to see if we could sneak guys here, put them on IR there, or do the pupless kind of musical chairs type thing. But we ended up keeping 11. What is interesting, not to just jump off, but the Vikings, just because I took a peek at what the other guys did in the NFC North, the Vikings are going into their initial 53 with only 8 alignment. So it does happen. I'm just saying, not crazy. But the other thing was that I did think that we maybe were going to have a 7th wide receiver, but it seems really cool that they felt more confident in having that 3 running back set like we talked about. I'm not sure if that's going to stick that way, but it's cool. It sounded like to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that Tenuta made the team, but it's almost pretty much a guarantee that they're going to move him to IR tomorrow.
That's kind of the vibe I get, yeah.
It sounds like that's going to be replaced. His spot will be replaced by Orzech, the long snapper, because at the moment we technically do not have a long snapper on the squad, if I'm not mistaken.
They're going to have to pull a drunk out of section 125 to go down there and snap the ball as we sit right now, right? You got anything else, Jacob, on offense?
Yeah, like you said, man, Newman, that one surprised me. I thought that really we would keep I thought we were going to keep Empey just because I really think that was going to happen. And like you talked about, it's just I think we've seen what we need to see out of Royce. He's shown that his peak was his rookie year, and after that it's just been a kind of slow and steady descent into beyond mediocrity. It's unimpressive. So I don't know. Maybe you keep him on there just in a pinch. But to me, keeping 11 was surprising when one of those 11 is Newman for sure.
Got it. Before we go to Tim here, I want to give a special shout out to Josh Martin with the super chat. Hey, man, thanks for supporting the stream. He said, I'm not a big fan of 3 running backs. I'd rather have a 5th corner. If a cornerback goes down, we're screwed during the game. I was all for just keeping 2 running backs as well. And if you had asked me yesterday, which it's pretty much what we talked about on the stream, I kept 2 running backs and kept 5 corners. So I completely agree with you, Josh. But at the same time, they kept Emmanuel Wilson for a reason, and immediately my mind starts to, reverse engineer. Okay, they caught wind that there were several teams onto Emmanuel Wilson. That's the only thing I can come up with. So with that being said, when you talk about the corners that they had to let go, keep in mind, you're probably going to see the practice squad come back heavy with cornerbacks, right? So the question becomes, who is another team more likely to pick up? That running back Emmanuel Wilson or one of those cornerbacks that, in my opinion, when you get down below those top four, everybody's kind of even. You got 3 or 4 options there, right? At least 2 of those are going to make it to the practice squad, if not all of them, if they want them all on the practice squad. So at any point, they can elevate one of those corners if a corner does go down. Now, if you're talking strategically, in a game in live action, oh man, we're down to, only 3 corners and we got to go to a dime set. You're heavy on safety. And I think the same thing. You just went, but our safeties suck. I got you, man. I completely agree with what you're saying. But that would be my guess, Josh, is that they caught wind that multiple people were on to Emmanuel Wilson, and they knew that next tier of corners on the roster were probably dead even. So they knew, okay, we can bring one of those guys back on the practice squad. But again, Josh, thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate you, man. Tim, offensively, dude, what stands out to you about this roster?
I mean, clearly what we just talked about, I think we all have the same take on this. Emmanuel Wilson making the team is pretty surprising, I think. I thought they would have kept 2 for sure. But we did kind of think that this could have happened also, and clearly there's merit. He had a hell of a preseason and a hell of a camp. So, that's a protection move, clearly. Samari Toure made the cut, guys. That shouldn't really be a standout, but we kind of discussed the possibility of even him maybe being bumped down a notch or so. But all in all, man, I'm pretty happy offensively, other than, again, Newman. I kind of felt like, with Sean Ryan taking
Newman.
with Sean Ryan taking that step up that he did this year, I thought maybe that would have been the thing that did Royce in, but apparently not, because they're both on this team. Letting go of Empey was a little shocking too, as far as center kind of backup scenario. So I don't know what the contingency plan is with guys like Newman and even the inconsistencies we talked about with Josh Myers. So we'll see what goes on, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with the offense.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. I think it's going to be a fun year. We got a lot of young talent and a lot of people that are going to be, kind of fighting for game time, right? Playing time. And I don't know, dude, I think that when you have competition across the board like they do, in my opinion, the worst receiver on this 53-man roster isn't that far away from the best receiver on this 53-man roster. I mean, when you look at the way Malik Heath played, if you were to put him in the same exact situations as a Romeo Doubs, I don't think it's a huge drop-off. Now, Romeo Doubs could take that major step forward, which we've seen that flash in the preseason, and hopefully that hamstring seems to be healthy based off of how everything looks, with the 53. So, Chicago game can't get here quick enough, guys. Let's do this. Let's move on to defense. But before we do want to give, like I said, a shout-out to the official sponsor of Packernet Podcast, and that is Old Southern Barbecue Smokehouse. They got 5 locations in Rice Lake, Hudson, Arden Hills, Minneapolis, and Shakopee. And you can check out their website, www.oldsouthernbarbecue.com. Really appreciate them supporting the channel and everything that we're doing. It's going to be an awesome partnership that's actually officially coming up September 1st, and going to be really, really cool having them on board with Packernet Podcast for sure. Let's move on to defense. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm just going to kind of rattle off my notes here, what I came away with, gang. Defensive line, TJ Slaton, in my opinion, he's taken major steps forward. The question is, will it continue, right? You've seen it this preseason. You've seen it toward the end of the year last year. He's starting to show a quicker burst. He's learned how to use his hands well. He's able to eat up those double teams. We've now been able to move Kenny out of the nose, really starting pretty much all of last year. Kenny was out of the nose tackle position because TJ Slaton's been able to step into that position. What that does is free Kenny Clark up to be that 3 tech that we talk about is so valuable across the NFL. And what I mean by 3 tech, basically with your techs, you've got, if you're lined up at nose, you're playing shade over the center, that's a 0 tech. If you're playing over top of one of the 2 guards, that's a 2 tech, right? The 3 tech is in between the guards and the tackle. And what it does is it forces a one-on-one matchup. It's much harder to double team a 3 tech off the offensive line simply because we play with what we call wide fronts. We play with wide 7 and wide 9 fronts with our outside linebackers, with our edge defenders. So what you essentially have is you've got to pick your poison. They've got to decide, are we going to move the center over to help block the 3 tech, who is all one complete gap over, right? So keep in mind, he's lined up. Kenny will be lined up majority of the time. When we're in nickel, he'll play a little more 1 tech than 3. But when we're in our base, imagine him being in between the guard and the tackle. Now, how are you going to double team Kenny with the center and the guard? The guard has to get to his outside shoulder. So what it is, it's an isolation move. And TJ Slayton stepping into that role as nose tackle is what's going to allow that upgrade to take place, essentially. So TJ Slayton's going to be the key to this defensive front, in my opinion. Of course, we got Devontae Wyatt playing on the opposite side in that base 34. Carl Brooks, I think, will have an impact this season. Everything I've seen, he had a very high PFF grade in college, and everybody immediately said, it was a smaller college. He comes into training camp. He flashed every single day you heard his name mentioned. I couldn't tell you how many times. He was one of the 3 players of the day for Andy Herman. And then all of a sudden it was, it's just training camp. We get into the preseason games. He flashes in the preseason games. I'm telling you, when we get into the regular season, do not be surprised if Carl Brooks works himself into this rotation and he is an impact player on this defensive line. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. At the edge room, I think we've got one of the deepest edge rooms in the entire National Football League. I mean, when you look at it across the board, Enigbare looks like he's starter ready. He looks like a guy who could play starting edge for the large majority of the NFL teams across the league. Right? I'm not saying he's a number 1 edge defender on a team, but I'm telling you, he is right up there in the top 10 of number 2 edge defenders on each team. He's someone who's established himself there. Van Ness, with his versatility, if for some reason we get in injury trouble on the defensive line, we go to a nickel. He's got the versatility that he can kick inside, and his traits, his physical ability actually it actually points in that direction. Like that would be his strength. Now they're trying to turn him into an edge defender, right? That's what they really want to ultimately get out of Van Ness. So when Preston Smith steps away, Van Ness can step into that number 2 edge defender opposite Rashawn Gary, right? Once we get that contract done. So what's really cool about Van Ness, though, watching through the preseason, people are going, yeah, but he's only got 1 move. He just bull rushes. That's BS. I'm telling you right now, I've seen him punch, pull, and swim. I've seen him punch, pull, and rip. I've seen him use speed to the outside now. He's starting to develop. Now, I'm not suggesting that he's elite with these moves, but you can see he's starting to put together his repertoire, right? He's starting to put together his weaponry where he's going to be able to attack offensive linemen. And the one that really stands out to me, I'm telling you, he's got the bull rush. That punch, pull, and swim looked really, really impressive in that last preseason game. So watch for Van Ness. And, of course, Jacob's boy, Brenton Cox Jr., there's 2 words that come, or 3 words, I should say, that come to mind for me: boom or bust. When he's on the field, you're either going to see an excellent play or he's going to run himself out of the play. But one thing's for sure, you're going to get 110% when it comes to effort with Brenton Cox Jr. At the linebacker position, if Devondre Campbell is healthy, then he's going to be even better than he was last year because he played hurt pretty much the entire season. Quay Walker is poised for a second-year jump. Michael Lombardi's all over it. He's in his red chip of linebackers this year going into the season. Tariq Carpenter, this is one negative I got to say, guys. He should not be on this roster. He shouldn't. And to me, this is where I don't bash Goody often. I don't disagree with him often. And I'm not sitting here suggesting that I understand talent evaluation better than Brian Gutekunst. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm simply saying is keeping him on the roster, when you look at the tape, it's not there. Okay, he couldn't play linebacker or he couldn't play safety, so they moved him to linebacker. You put on the tape at linebacker, it's not there. The training camp reports, it's not there. You look at the PFF grade, it's not there. And it's just one word. It's ego. It's, everybody likes to bash the San Francisco 49ers, and nobody likes to bash them more than me, man. I absolutely despise the San Francisco 49ers. I love the history, the tradition of Bill Walsh, but I hate the 49ers. But I'm telling you, everybody's making fun of them for swinging and missing on Trey Lance, but the only thing worse than missing on a draft pick is refusing to admit you missed on a draft pick. And with Tariq Carpenter, what I've seen, it seems like they missed on that draft pick. You've got to be willing to acknowledge that. You've got to be willing to accept that you made that mistake. That's one negative for me. At the cornerback room, will Keyshawn Nixon succeed in the nickelback slot? And if he doesn't, can Valentine, unseat him from that role? I think Valentine's got a promising future. I would not be surprised one bit if later on in the year he unseats Keyshawn Nixon for that nickel spot. I could see that happening. And then at safety, it seems like it's Darnell Savage and Rudy Ford are the starters. The question is, can Anthony Johnson Jr. push for a midseason starter spot? And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Not because Anthony Johnson Jr. is so great, but unless things change, I mean, the safety room is what it is, right? We've talked about it enough on here. I don't want to be the negative Nancy of the fan base, but if you see it, you got to say it. Greg Cosell 101. We've seen it at the safety position other than Rudy Ford, and it's been bad. I don't know if Jonathan Owens can cover. He's definitely a good tackler, but I don't know about being in coverage. He might be that big nickel safety that comes in and plays in the box and helps with the run. Jacob, defensive side of the ball, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I'm jacked. I've been a fan of TJ Slayton. He was one of my guys since the time we drafted him. I think I even remember saying something about the fact of like, man, he could be our new Gilbert Brown. And then he went and did the Gravedigger. So that's pretty good.
Gravedigger, I'm telling you, I would never forget it. I loved it.
And then, Wyatt, I still have high hopes on Wyatt. He has been oddly kind of quiet, but he hasn't gotten a lot of snaps. I'm looking for him to get like a full. I'm so excited because there's so many sparks that we've seen from certain guys, but we're only looking at their play through a spectrum of like three drives. Typically, if the guys that we really want to see, maybe something like 4 drives, a quarter, maybe a half a quarter to 2 quarters tops. So it's like I want to see what happens when every single one of these people that are starting on both sides of the ball have to play 3 continuous quarters. They go into the 4th quarter. We talked about how Emmanuel Wilson, LaFleur called him out for his lack of conditioning on the defense. I'd have to imagine that's even, you're running constantly after people and you don't know what you're doing. So I really hope the defense has some great conditioning. I want to see Wyatt play a full game and maybe he can put together like I expect him to have a really, really good jump this year. With Wood and Brooks, like you talked about, Brooks is just, he flashes, man. And it's finally really, somebody said in the chat, I don't remember who it was, something about how this is the best D-line we've had since the 90s. It's putting the cart a little bit before the horse because we need to see it in the full game like we talked about. But I agree, man. And my pleasant surprise, I would say, is Jonathan Ford making the team. I really, really like him. He was another one of the late round guys that I just am a sucker for them. But I think like you talked about on a different episode, Clayton, we need a guy that's another true nose. And I think that's definitely what he is. But then you want to talk about the edge room, dude. I got that one.
He's the first person I thought of when I seen all 6. I was like, Jacob's going to be fired up, man.
I was, and I'm not a big Hollins fan, but I just trust. Like I'm not smarter than they are. Like we talk about. I don't have a big enough ego to think, oh, Justin Hollins sucks. I watched him, and I think it was a Cincinnati game. He did a couple of really good moves. So if they like him, I like him. But what's more important is Gary Enagbare Smith, a guy that's just. I believe Smith's now developing into that more of he's going to set the edge. He's going to just be that staple there to be a good run defender. And every now and then he does just kind of break free and gets a great pass rush. So that's cool. But you got guys, younger guys with a massive motor and that have chips on their shoulder, either because of, you look at Van Ness, he's a 1st round draft pick. You got to live up to that, right? Where you're Brenton Cox, you're undrafted. You got kicked off of 2 teams. You were like a 5-star recruit out of high school. You got a chip on your shoulder too. I mean, and it's really, really cool to see. Enagbare is a 5th round, slip from what people thought was maybe even a 2nd to 3rd round pick. And then, Hollins is a guy that nobody else wanted. And then Rashawn Gary, if you remember about that, people were shocked he got taken in the 1st because he's not a pass rusher. He didn't have stats in college. He was crappy at Michigan. Nobody wants him. He's not a team guy. He doesn't even like football, as he cried while he got drafted. And,
no doubt, man.
And inside linebacker, that one, like you talked about, I pride myself and we pride ourselves. I would like to argue that we don't do a lot of fluff. When I log in about 5 minutes before we go live, we don't really talk about anything other than really general topics. We'll say, hey, we want to touch on this and this, and then that's about it. We don't usually get into topics because it's more natural when it's organic. But me and Clayton both could not help but talk about, hey, Tariq Carpenter made the team. How did he make the team? Like, that's an ego thing. And I don't know. I like the fact that he made the team because if you remember, he is an actual like little kid Packer fan. They showed that picture of him as when he's like 6 or 7 years old wearing a Packers shirt, jersey, or whatever it was. So I'm a homer in that aspect but I don't see logically where he helps the team. We talked about it. There's not really a special teams presence there. He doesn't have a great defensive grade. They tried him at safety. We have 5 safeties there. So even if you would argue that that's a tweener there, that what is our 6th safety, or is he our 5th basically linebacker? Because I don't even think he can play linebacker, and I don't know what position he fills. So it is shocking to me a little bit. Otherwise, the rest of it wasn't at inside linebacker too shocking at all. At cornerback, I was a little bit surprised we kept the 4th or only 4, just because I'm a little bit worried about what Nixon's going to do in the slot. If you guys actually kind of put on some spotlight on what his performance has been lately in the preseason, it didn't look great, but I hope that he's just one of those gamers that kind of turns it on. And if nothing else, if he is, I really just hope that it seems like we're setting ourselves up to have a very young team that we're going to give a lot of people shots early. And if they are great, then we're going to give them more playing time. I really hope that if they're not great, that we're not just going to give them playing time like guys like Nixon. He's a great returner. He doesn't have to be our slot if he's not performing the right way. That being said, I move on to and then Pup. Stokes going on Pup. I think that's interesting to think that we could even have him coming back. And I don't know necessarily what that would do, if he's even game ready or what he looks like on the field. I don't know where his position falls into place there, if he's just immediately on the back of the depth chart, but it's nice to know that we have a lot of depth there. And tomorrow we're going to know a lot more, honestly, I think, than we do today, because the dust is going to settle. I think it's 11 a.m. they need to be signed back to the practice squad.
So.
Okay. So, and then real quick, I'll get through the safeties and we'll get Tim's opinion here. I was actually more shocked, and I know I shouldn't have been, but that Levitt made it again, because he specifically just special teams. That's all he is. And I don't think he's that great where it would, but if that's his guy, like it seems like he had that in his contract. Like, you're never going to fire this guy. He's with me. And I didn't really understand the Owens pick. It's like Simone was in there being like, you're going to sign him. I think she just won like another tournament or another gold or something. So that's probably, but I love seeing that Ford made it. And I love saying that Anthony Johnson Jr. made it. I really do think that he's going to fight to be a starter. Yeah. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully Ford does great. Hopefully Savage plays like a 1st-round draft pick, but I'm not holding my breath for that. So all in all, I think it's good. I would have just maybe liked to see, I don't know who I would have probably replaced. I maybe would have probably taken Corey Ballantyne over Carpenter. Is my
completely agree with that. Completely agree. And that's what a lot of people in the chat were saying, is like, man, I could see him keeping Dubose over Carpenter. Carpenter's one of those guys, and Newman too. Newman too is just kind of like, man, I could think of 3 or 4 players I would rather have than them on the roster. Roger Davis in the chat says, I'll consider this season a success if 3 things happen. 1, we beat the Bears twice. 2, we win 9 games. And of course, we get that 65%. 65%. That's what we go. Tim, buddy, what do you think about the defense, man? This is your cup of tea. How are we feeling about this initial 53 on the defensive side of the ball?
I feel phenomenal. I feel stupendous. I feel fantastic. And guys, hey, clearly, Tariq Carpenter is on his team because clearly he's going to be the long snapper. I mean, obviously, I'm joking. That was a joke. But, I'm really happy. I mean, hey, if you got to tell them it's a joke, it's probably not funny. Defensive line for sure. I got nothing to say. I'm happy. I was kind of on the fence with Jonathan Ford. I was going back and forth whether it was him or maybe Chris Slayton, and I think they made the right move there, keeping Jonathan Ford out on the 53. Outside linebacker, the edge, whatever we call it now, can't say enough about this group. I do think Keyshawn Banks is a possible practice squad pickup, maybe. I noticed that Kenneth Odumegwu is listed as released, but we know that that's just a formality. He's guaranteed his spot. So on the inside, can't say enough about Quay and Isaiah McDuffie, Dre Campbell, Eric Wilson making the team. He absolutely deserves it. I think he had a solid camp. We won't talk about Tariq Carpenter anymore. The corners, Eric Stokes is a big question mark, regardless of the injury status and, or his pup status and how the rehab's going. let's say we get him at 100%, we don't really have a great read on him, throughout a full season. So that can be a question mark at corner, which validates a lot of, our points when it comes to the group of us that is saying, hey, we could have kept another corner rather than maybe the third running back, rather than maybe the fifth safety. And I guess I'll just go to safety. Then Anthony Johnson Jr. puts a big smile on my face seeing him. I wasn't shocked, but it did kind of surprise me a little that he did in fact make it. Because the last few weeks have been kind of rough on him physically, but he's proving to be a gamer, and hopefully he can make a splash in that. I don't want to use the term lackluster, but maybe subpar, questionable safety group. And Jacob, I agree with you. It'd be nice if Darnell Savage would play like a first-round draft pick, but I've been saying that for the last 4 years, three years. So I don't know. But crazier things have happened, and we will see come tomorrow morning what things look like. I'm assuming, I don't want to assume, but I think Clayton, you alluded to it. Probably corner is going to be a position group. They're going to probably snag at least a couple of guys for the practice squad, maybe Ballantyne, SJC, or a guy like Keandre Thomas or something. So it'll be interesting to see what we're looking at going forward, but a lot to be excited about with this group defensively. So go Pack, go.
No doubt. Good stuff, man. Yeah, I think the defensive side of the ball is probably the strength of this team right now. Now, how cool would it be we come out in the season and somehow the offense, lives up to that standard as well? I think that would be absolutely awesome. So I'm excited, man. Again, overall, I'm happy with the way the 53-man fell, but at the same time, there was just, I think I counted 2, 3, maybe 4 moves that I was like, man, I wish they'd have done that different. But again, I'm just a dumb redneck from Tennessee. What do I know? We got a super chat here from Mike Hebring. Appreciate you supporting the stream, buddy. He says, is it possible Goot will be in the market for a 4th tight end? Allen to the practice squad would be one option. Jets release Zach Kuntz and loved him in the draft. Yeah, that's what Bill Huber was talking about, Mike. We talked about it a little bit yesterday in Bill Huber's article. He said that they were going to have 4 tight ends on the roster, but he only had 3 listed. He had a question mark. He said to be announced, like as if they'll probably claim one off of waivers. That would be an upgrade. If Tyler Davis hadn't got hurt, I don't think we'd be talking about this. But the fact that they're trying to fill that void of a true tight end, a true Y in this offense, and I'm not trying to suggest that Tyler Davis is some kind of superstar, but it's real simple. He is a traditional Y tight end that can play attached. And what I mean by Y, for those of you listening that may not know this, you've got multiple types of tight ends in the NFL. A Y is a traditional tight end that plays attached to the offensive line. You can have Y flex, you can have Y off, you can have Y sift, all those things, but that's that traditional type of tight end. Your F tight ends are the more the receiver type tight ends. Your big, tall, speedy guys like your Luke Musgrave. He would be considered an F. However, they're playing him at Y, right? And if he comes out this year and he blocks decent and holds his own against those 7 techs on the defensive front, then I'm going to start referring to him as a Y. But right now, he's kind of that F build. Now, when you go to Tucker Kraft, to me, he would kind of fit that role of a U. And with U, I've heard some people say it stands for utility. I've heard some people say that replaced the quote-unquote H-back. I've heard some people say that Billy O'Brien, when he was with the Houston Texans, just simply named his tight ends F and U to be funny about it, F-U. That's what the truth is. But when you think of a U tight end, it's someone who can kind of do all of the above. It doesn't mean they're great at anything, but someone who could line up in the backfield, someone who can line up attached to the line, even someone you could split out wide occasionally, So when you look at it from that perspective, I kind of looked at, like Tunyon last year would have been considered an F tight end, right? He was the F tight end in this offense. Mercedes Lewis was that true Y, and DeGuara was more of that U, right? And we still got DeGuara on the roster, obviously. But yeah, when you talk about, is it possible Goot will be in the market for a 4th tight end? Absolutely. If you had to say Clayton, you got to bet the farm on it. What position do you think they will pick up and put on the 53 tomorrow? It would probably be tight end for me. And the reason I wouldn't pick corner is because I feel like they've got a handful of corners that grade out at the same level that are going to be on the practice squad, and they feel comfortable with that. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I definitely think that's kind of the perspective they're coming from with that. So, Mike, hopefully that answered your question. Appreciate the super chat. Go ahead, Jacob.
No, if I'm not mistaken, I think that Zach Kuntz was a guy that I profiled in one of our pre-draft.
It was.
Yeah, okay, because he's a physical freak too. I think that he more is kind of that more along that Musgrave build, though. I think he's really tall, but maybe not as heavily built. I'm not exactly sure what his blocking. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but to be honest, I know if I liked him then, I'd like him now. So yeah, bring on the Kuntz, because Gutekunst. Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Let's see. I had a couple of messages here. Let me try to find it real quick. I think it was Tim in the chat. Tim said it could be Goot held the 11 offensive or OL players as they are the most scarce in the market. Hold for a bit and then trade in 4 to 8 weeks. That could definitely be the case, Tim. I like the way you're thinking, man. You're playing chess, not checkers, and I like it, dude. I like it a lot.
Especially when it comes to Newman.
Yeah, Newman. I got to hit it one more time.
Hello, Newman.
All right, we got another one here that I wanted to read. Andy APAC in the chat says, do we feel like we need to add another corner or tight end? I'm a bit nervous going in with only 4. I assume some of the safeties will play in a pinch. When it comes to corner, again, that's kind of the way I see it, Andy, is you're probably going to have more I don't want to say more safeties than corners active on game day, but I think that if you were to fast forward into the future and look back on the season that's about to happen, you would say, yeah, it made a lot of sense that we promoted so many corners from the practice squad from time to time, because again, you can lift those players from the practice squad, to the best of my knowledge, up to 3 times per season. And if you got a stash of 3 or 4 corners on the practice squad that you feel comfortable are in the same tier as far as talent goes, then I could see them doing that just to kind of fill in a pinch if everyone stays healthy. Now, if those 4 corners stay healthy and we don't add a 5th to the 53 tomorrow, and they all stay healthy, it's very seldom you're going to need 5 corners on the field, because even when you go to like a quarters coverage or a dollar look, most of the time you've got a safety in there, right? You've got a safety playing in one of those DB spots. It's just so rare that you have 5 cornerbacks on the field. You can have 7 DBs on the field and still only have 4 corners. It just depends on how you want to build the roster. And I think they're still really keying in on special teams, man. I believe that. I think that when you step up and you look at special teams, you think, okay, who would I rather have gunning, a corner or a safety? It's going to be a safety all day long, right? And Jacob, I know you're not high on Dallin Levitt, nor was I, but I got to say this, man. When I looked at those preseason grades from that last game in PFF, I went, Dallin just made a roster again. He's going to be back because he showed enough in special teams. I think he was our leader in that final game. It might have even been the whole preseason on special teams. He had the highest grades. So let's see here. We got Blake in the chat said, I don't think Ballantyne would do much to save us in a pinch. Hopefully Stokes is back before the end of the year. I think he would definitely be back. Jacob, what do you think? You think they'll activate him off the pup probably around week 4 or something?
Yeah, it has to be after week 4. I do. I just, like I said, I don't know exactly what. So many different things can happen injury wise. God forbid that they test positive for something, or like something happens. I don't know, man. It just 4 cornerbacks seems a little
weird, right?
It's weird. Like, I don't know. And especially because I would understand it if a guy like Ennis Gaines was one of the 5 safeties, but
Yep.
somebody that was a little more of a tweener that could, in a pinch, has done.
I was just going to say, who out of this safety group are we comfortable putting in at corner?
I think that it'd have to be Anthony Johnson Jr., if I'm not mistaken, did some cornerback work at Iowa State, if I'm not mistaken. But
that doesn't make me feel better.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Let's talk about special teams for a second, fellas. Anders Carlson, right? Big leg. Is it Anders? Okay. All right, we're going to Anders today.
Man, call this guy. Let's get him on the line.
Get him up.
Get him on the line. Here. Actually, we've got Anders on the line right now. This Anders, is it Anders? It's Anders, right?
You sure about that? You sure about that?
You don't even know, dude. What are we doing here? What are we doing? Special teams. So when it comes to special teams, Anders has got a big leg. And if you were to remove everything, think about this, and you guys are going to call me a used car salesman right now, and probably rightfully so. If you were to remove all of the camp reports, all of the practice reporting that happened for the beat writers, remove all that, and just simply look at what did he do in the game, I don't think we're having near as much outrage, are we? So when it comes to that, I think his field goal percentage was like over 80%, right, in the preseason. But when you include the practice, it was somewhere around 60%. Yeah. So, like you said, Tim, practice is for practice, right? Like, who knows what they've got him working on in practice, right? He could be simply in there trying different angles, trying different leg angles, trying, different torque. Like Tim had talked about, he's more of a straight on kicker. Maybe he was doing a little more soccer style angle. He could have been working on things. And you get in front of the crowd when it matters. Okay, let's take what we implemented and let's focus on trying to hit the field goal. And he come out and performed pretty decent, right? And yes, he missed some extra points, but people pretend like extra points are just a slam dunk in today's game, and they're not, right? So I'm not as worried about Andrews, and I wish I would have listened to Tim a long time ago, because Tim was from the get-go saying RELAX. I'm not going to be surprised if he comes out this year and he just booms the freaking ball. And it's funny, Michael Lombardi, Tim, he was talking about this on the GM Shuffle. He said, how many times have we – and he wasn't specifically talking about the Packers, but I think it applies. He said, how many times have we talked in the past and we've seen where teams have given up on kickers in training camp, they cut them, they go sign with another team. By the way, he specifically mentioned Daniel Carlson, right, Andrews' brother. And he went on and just played freaking lights out for several years, had one of the strongest legs in the league. He's like – these teams are so quick to give up on kickers. And what have I been screaming all preseason? We better get Mason in here. And I'm hearing a former GM say it, Tim, and I'm going, yeah, I need to shut the hell up and listen to these guys. Maybe I'm overreacting. But how do you feel about Andrews going into the year, man? Are we about the same comfort level, or how are you feeling?
I actually feel a little better after being at the game and seeing the 57-yarder in person. I do. And I think what I can attest to what you were just saying too, because I saw it at camp the whole month of August, is that every day was a different kind of approach, and he's honing it in, and he's still figuring out that plant leg. He had surgery on the plant, on the ACL, I think it was, on his left leg. So you know how that is. That can be a mental thing too, having confidence in your stride and where you're stepping, and that will definitely affect all your kicks. So I think him just getting comfortable was, that's the process that we were looking at during camp. And I think he's as most comfortable as he has been, especially when we hear about those last couple practices with the guys throwing water at him and, cursing out his family or whatever they were doing to distract him. And he was able to find some success. And I wonder if that's almost, the trash talk from Ja and Rasul and the guys, during practice like that. I wonder if that's what jarred everything loose kind of at the end, and he was able to just go out there on Saturday and boot the big ones. So I feel good about Anders Carlson, man. And I also feel good about Whelan too. So, guys, it's special teams, and, when special teams is really good, nobody pays any attention. And then, but when they're bad, everyone wants to jump down their throats. So I think we got to just give these guys time to play together, and we'll see as the season progresses, but it's looking good, guys. I feel good about it.
Yeah, definitely. Daniel Whelan, kind of the same boat as Anders Carlson, right? Strong leg. I think he's been more consistent than Carlson, though, right? If you were to look up at Daniel Whelan and say, okay, you've got Pat O'Donnell and you got Daniel Whelan. Daniel Whelan can kick the ball better. He's got better hang time. He's got an absolute, just a rocket for a foot, right? And the next question is, well, can he hold? I'm still in shell shock for 2 years ago, guys. I ain't going to BS you. Like, I'm sitting there going, I remember it like it was yesterday that we couldn't hold for a freaking kick. We couldn't snap worth a lick, right? Jacob, do you feel okay about Daniel Whelan? How do you feel about him being the punter, being the holder going in? I know, like you said, we watched that tape. We watched that highlight reel of him holding. He looks clean and crisp on holding for kicks. And I don't know if I'm just trying to be a Packers fanboy or what, but I'm feeling okay about Daniel Whelan being the punter.
I actually feel really great about it. One, because Pat O'Donnell, don't get me wrong, I liked him, but he was a Bear. I don't want a Bears punter. I want our own punter. And I like that. It's almost like, remember when did we draft J.K. Scott? Am I remembering that correctly?
I think so.
So maybe this is the football gods coming down and saying, hey, we're going to give you a mulligan on that one. Here's an Irishman who can boot it out the stadium. And then after that, he can, I
All
believe
right, hey, that's just the way we talk in the clink.
he can actually, Bisaccia is the one apparently that said that his holding game has much improved throughout camp. And I mean, if you're going to go with a rookie kicker, why not go with a rookie holder and go with a first-year snapper? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
I really
might
think
as well.
this is the type of year where we're just throwing spaghetti at the wall. We're seeing what's going to stick. And before, if you would have told me that was our philosophy like 2 months ago, I would have thought, man, we're going to win like 4 games. But after seeing the talent we have and seeing that the way that they're meshing together, that it's not just a flash in the pan, seeing the fact that we have a guy like Clifford in the background, seeing that we have, like we talked about, I would not be surprised if Anders Carlson misses like 5 extra points, but nails 5 field goals over 60 yards this year. So what do you do? Is that a trade-off? I don't know. And it looked like Daniel Whelan, Big Mac Productions again. I don't remember. I think he changed his tag on Twitter/X. So I might have to talk to him about that. But he put out a highlight reel of all of Daniel Whelan's kicks. We should have known that he was going to make the team. He got a ridiculous amount of kicks to the point where it's like, did Pat even kick more than 10 times like at all? I don't know. It was weird. So
yeah.
And then the real quick, the snapper, I don't know much about him at all. They're saying that that's the guy that we're probably going to sign tomorrow correctly if what's his face? Tenuta.
Orzic?
Yeah, Orzic if in exchange for Tenuta.
Okay.
Got it. Want to take a second, give a special shout out to our newest members here on the YouTube members list of the PTA Posse. We got Tom Spalding, we got True Bruce Steve, Doug, and Carly Ray. Appreciate you guys supporting the channel. If you're interested in doing that, you just simply click on join on the homepage. And we're actually going to be doing giveaways all year. We've already got the next one set up, but right now coming up week 1 for the post-game show against the Bears, we're going to be giving away an autographed Lucas Van Ness jersey, just like this one right here over my shoulder. And basically we're going to put everybody's name on the wheel that's a current member of the YouTube channel of the PTA Posse. And we're going to spin that sucker and give away that we're going to give away that jersey. And then, of course, Jacob's got actually a piece of a game-worn jersey of Aaron Rodgers that will be given away to second place on that. So we're going to spin it twice that night. Really excited about doing that. And again, it's just an opportunity to kind of give back to those who are supporting the channel. We really appreciate you guys doing that. We got Garrett in the chat as Jacob shows off the memorabilia there. Garrett in the chat says Ryan Schlip addressed the Bears O-line on a recent pod, and their PFF scores are atrocious. And they're a little banged up too, if I remember, Garrett. I'm pretty sure they're battling some injuries, man. I'm telling you, if Rashawn Gary is ready week 1, guys, I am so excited about it. Dude, listen, I'm going to say it like I've said it 1,000 times. Is there a chance we lose to the Bears? Absolutely, there's a chance. But anyone who tries to convince you that the Packer fans have just been running their mouth and the Bears fans aren't, the Bears have talked so much crap this offseason. Their fans have it's just a slam dunk. Take it to the bank. The Packers will suck for the next 20 years because they no longer have a Hall of Fame quarterback, and they are going to smoke our heads in week 1. I can't wait for it to get here. I cannot wait for it to get here. Jacob, what do you think? How many times do you think we will sack Justin Fields in the Bears game?
So that's where I'm I really, really hope that we don't go like, I'm trying to not say the word I'm trying to say. I hope we don't go all gas, no break.
My man he's growing and changing every day. I love it.
I don't want
he not only rambled, but he rumbled and stumbled.
I don't want us to be so jacked up about we want to get to the quarterback, because that's Justin Fields' best technique that he uses. He's not a good quarterback, but he's good at running. He's a running back. So, for instance, I see in the chat here, Garrett saying, hey, Jacob, if Cox gets a sack or a turnover versus the Bears, you get a jersey. Number one, yes. But number two, I almost don't want to see him in that position because the one big knock on Brenton Cox Jr., I'm going to keep saying his full name because we're going to keep getting demonetized if I don't say his full name. So
it's not that, Jacob. It's us trying to be too funny at the wrong moments. And I say us, not just you. It's me. And Tim can play innocent all he wants. He giggles back there too. He's guilty by association. Done deal.
We've seen his Achilles heel is that sometimes he just rushes and he puts his head down.
Open man.
Does not care what happens if he lets outside contain, if he lets, an inside run, he just kind of all of a sudden. So I don't want to see them put him in that position. And I don't want to see our guys on the outside losing contain, but I'm very much more hopeful that we have guys on the interior now, like Wyatt, Kenny Clark, Wooden, Brooks, that can kind of just have a little more oomph to their little more hitch to their giddy up, and that they have a little more pursuit. I want Quay Walker shadowing freaking Justin Fields. That's what I want. And I want Devondre Campbell to be in coverage. Because if we can somehow make that work throughout, I feel like that's right now. Make him throw the ball. Make him throw the ball.
Amen. Rush 3 all day. Make him throw it. Make him throw it.
A hot pile of burning garbage, a baby diaper rotting in the sun. He is the worst.
Sounds horrible. You kidding me, dude?
It's a good thing they got a tailback as a quarterback in Chicago because they're going to need it.
That's what's up.
Did you say a rotten baby diaper baking in the sun?
Yeah.
Gentlemen, what brings me to my next point. Don't smoke crack.
Unbelievable. It's funny. We keep getting these little notifications from YouTube that the ads are going to be limited because of something we said. And I'm trying to narrow it down. Like, what did we say inappropriate? It's all of it. It's all of this stuff. It's got to be.
How does Mac anyway. Time, though? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Steve is real. Yeah. In the chat says, not to change topics. How about those Irish? How about the Irish, Clayton? Were you impressed? I don't want to spend too much time on this because this is a Packers podcast. But, yes, Steve, Sam Hartman's a real deal, dude, and he better be. He's 43 years old, right? Starting quarterback for a college team. I think the Irish are set up pretty nice this year. And again, I love college football because it feeds the NFL, But and Notre Dame's just got that traditional tie to Green Bay.
I was going to say the Notre Dame. Didn't we get like our first practice uniforms from them? And that's the horrible kind of navy blue ones that everybody hates.
Yeah. Basically the ties there with Notre Dame. There's multiple ties. I'm sure I'll screw some of this up because I don't have my notes in front of me. But essentially, Curly Lambeau, he went to play football at Wisconsin, and when he left East Green Bay High, and then when he found out, he pretended like he didn't know. Like, what do you mean freshmen don't get to start? So they weren't going to let him start. So he transferred to Notre Dame, and he played 1 year under Newt Rockne, at Notre Dame. And that 1 year under Newt Rockne, he ended up getting I think it was tonsillitis or strep throat or something, and he almost died. So he had to move back to Green Bay. And when he moved back to Green Bay, that's where he ran into George Calhoun on the streets. And George Calhoun said, hey, you should start a Sandlot team. And George Calhoun, I've actually taken the pictures down, but I had a picture of a side-by-side shot right here on the wall before we put the stock up instead. But it was George Calhoun and Curly Lambeau. They're co-founders of the Green Bay Packers. So that's how the Packers came about. But Curly also coached baseball and football for a few years there in Green Bay. He ended up coaching a player that went on to be one of the 4 horsemen for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Okay. So yeah, when they started the Packers, essentially what Curly was doing was bringing the colors of Notre Dame to Green Bay. Cause when they first started, they had like a navy blue and kind of a tan and all that. Which I know everybody hated those jerseys when they wore the throwbacks, but I absolutely love them. I love them.
Me too, man.
And people were like, oh, the brown pants are crap. Dude, it was traditional. And people made fun of they said it was the pool ball, right? Well, they put a pool ball on the front of the jersey. That's stupid. You got to understand at that time, pro football was so broke that was like the fact that they put that number on the front of the jersey like that and that extra fabric. They were like, whoa, these guys are big time. Like it was a big deal back then. And of course, they wore the brown helmets. Why the hell are they wearing brown helmets? It signified the leather helmets.
And a lot of guys didn't even get their own number. They just wore whatever the hell got thrown to them that day.
Absolutely.
Go look up how many numbers Curly Lambeau wore when he played.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we found out this year when Jaden Reed got drafted, someone, when they posted he's wearing number 1, I was like, on Twitter, I was like, holy cow, they gave him Curly Lambeau's number. Like, no, it wasn't. Curly wore 42 or Curly wore 24. And it's like, Curly wore a lot of numbers. But you got to understand that in Packers history, their tradition is no one will ever wear the number 1 because that's set aside for Curly Lambeau, the very first Green Bay Packer, the founder of the co-founder of the Green Bay Packers, the first captain, the first coach, all of that, right? So soon after that, don't get me wrong, people ridiculed me. You don't know what you're talking about. He's wearing number 1. They announced it, and then all of a sudden it came out that he's going to wear number 11 because whoever issued that to him made a big boo-boo. Big boo-boo. So that's I thought that was cool that they stepped up, though, and prevented it because it is important, man. Tradition's important. And people say, well, why isn't his name on the facade? It is. It's all over the field. It's Lambeau Field. Another quick fact, too, and we're getting ready to wrap up. You guys get me talking on history, man. I'll run every damn listener off. Nobody will be left on the stream. But when Curly Lambeau passed away, I think it was in 1965. I can't remember the exact year. Whatever year Curly Lambeau died, he was up in the Sturgeon Bay area when he passed away. But when he passed away, the committee came together and basically told Lombardi, hey, we're going to rededicate the field and name it, because it was called New City Stadium. They said, we're going to name it Lambeau Field. Vince Lombardi was livid. Vince Lombardi absolutely despised Curly Lambeau, despised it, because Vince Lombardi was this family man. He was big on faith. He was a Catholic Christian. He was all these things and represented hard work and being honest and this and that. And Curly Lambeau had been married 73 times and was just a womanizer partier. They did not see eye to eye. So you can actually find it real easy online. You can find the program that year, not the year he died, but the first year that Curly Lambeau was invited back to New City Stadium when the stadium was built. They've actually got footage of him walking into the stadium. It is so iconic. It's like crackling. The film's crackling. It looks like something out of a horror movie or something. It's absolutely awesome. But on the front of that program, I think it was in 1965, is a picture of Curly Lambeau and Vince Lombardi shaking hands. And the look that Lombardi is giving him, he's smiling, but he is staring a hole through this guy. Man, it's just, I love it. I love it. Because George Calhoun and Curly Lambeau had a falling out as well, right? They ended up hating each other by the time they passed away. George Calhoun had a famous quote where he said that when he said, I hope I live long enough. I hope I outlive Curly so I can pee on his grave. He actually said that. So I just love the fact that they have all these little rivalries behind the scenes, man. I just think that stuff is absolutely awesome. It's so cool. It's so cool. So, all right. Anything else before we get ready to wrap up here? Jacob, I see your chat there, man. Anything else you want to hit on before we wrap this big bear up?
No, dude, I'm excited. I think, again, tomorrow's going to be another great episode, so stay tuned for that, because I'm just saying, it's like Clayton said, there's going to be a little bit of mix-ups and shake-ups, and we'll probably see a more finalized, settled-down roster tomorrow. And it's probably maybe only going to be 2 or 3 pieces that shift a little bit, but who knows? Because in that amount of time, by the time we go live, which I'm thinking, you're thinking 7 o'clock Central-ish tomorrow?
Yeah, sounds good.
Because that's I shouldn't say we should, but it's possible that we could be picking up other guys, making some cuts again. So I don't know, man. This is going to be a little bit of a whirlwind as we get ready for. What are we out? Is football start Thursday from this Thursday officially?
Yeah.
Yep. Isn't it KC or something like that?
What's that?
I think the first game's KC versus Lions, isn't it?
Yeah, KC and Detroit. So we'll see if the hype is real with Detroit. If they get ran out of the stadium, we'll know, okay, maybe they're taking a step back. But I think KC's going to be ready to roll for sure. This one, this chat, I probably shouldn't share it, but I'm going to anyway. It cracked me up. He said, "Imagine if Curly Lambeau had a smartphone, he'd be Brett Favre."
You think God never farted?
I love it. Yeah. And the split screen game, and rather play with the whiskey drinkers than the milk drinkers. Just saying, yeah, that's an old saying too, man. That's a good one as well. So yeah, but I guess you were alluding to split screen game. I'm reading through so many comments, it's hard for me to keep up. What time do you guys start streaming? Yeah, typically 7 Central, 8 Eastern is going to be our standard time. Now, when we do post game shows, we'll go live immediately following the game. So yeah, that's it. And
real quick, Split Screen Gaming also said at 7:57, so just a few minutes ago, said also just got my copy of Take Your Eye Off the Ball today. I worked in the store, so it was half off. I'm telling you guys, get this freaking book. I have been so busy at work, I haven't been able to get through more than like 3 chapters, but every time I've never been, and now this is how I know I'm getting old, because I have to find time to read a book. And if I were to take like a vacation, people are like, what are you going to do? Tomorrow's my birthday. So I got the day off, and people are like, what are you going to do for your birthday? And I was like, I'm going to catch up on some reading. And they were like, oh, that's
You're like, what?
I was like, no, it's cool. I sent Clayton a picture. I bought like 4 or 5 books. The most excited I am to read, though, is definitely the Take Your Eye Off the Ball. Clayton's been talking about it since I've known him. So it's and it definitely, it runs you through the ins and outs of everything about football. It's like the nitty gritty. I don't want to say it's like a football for dummies. It's like super intricate, but it breaks it down in a really readable, relatable way so that you really understand the nuts and bolts from the GM to the practice squad to the way that they train. It's really cool. And then they get into the specifics of the formations and all that, the terminology. It's super, super cool.
It's great, man. It's just you get these books, it's football for dummies and this and that, and you think, oh, this would be a good foundational book, man. It is way too dumbed down. Pat Kerwin does an excellent job of Take Your Eye Off the Ball, man. You're going to come away way more knowledgeable about the game. I've read it, like I said, I know I've read it at least 3 times, probably more. I've got it on audiobook as well. Sometimes when I'm out there on the ground during the work week, I'll pop that thing.
Can you send me the audiobook? I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, so when it first released, there was some extra material that came out with 2.0. And actually a disc. I've got a DVD.
Dude.
It's literally a visual. It's Pat Kerwin on a glass board, I guess you'd call it a chalkboard, ink board, whatever, grease board. And he's actually drawing this stuff up that he's talking about in the book. It's phenomenal. I need to find that and get you a copy for sure. But yeah, Split Screen Gaming, man, awesome. Congratulations on picking up that book. I'll give you one of these.
Took it down the sideline, turned over with my guys, gave the football to a little kid wearing 23.
Love it. Tim, your final thoughts, man, before we go to this super chat from Godsmack.
Oh man, I guess, guys, who do we think we're gonna pick up? A couple names that we might get after the waiver period. Like I said, Corey Ballantyne jumps out on the defensive side. So does Keyshawn Banks. And offensively, names like Jadakiss Bonds, even Cody Crest. Hell, we might see Alex Magoo on the practice squad. So
I think you probably will, Tim. Either him or maybe Danny Etling will be what do you call it, resurrected, right? Yep. That could happen.
Amen to that. So just kind of going over my list of the releases and seeing who will be back at 1265 here, hopefully. Starting tomorrow here, we should start to find out. So looking forward to the rest of the process here as we go into week 1. Excited for this season, guys.
Definitely. We'll end it with this super chat. It's going to be on a negative note, but man, I feel his pain a little bit. Godsmack, thank you for the super chat, bud. We appreciate you supporting the stream. He said, did Newman really make the 53? No way. He was one of our best 53 players. He should go eat 53 cheeseburgers and retire. Waste of a roster spot.
Hello, Newman.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought when I seen the final roster, man. Not about the burgers, about the hello Newman. I was like, oh man, Newman survives again. Man, look, man, he's a Packer, right? I hope he turns it around. I hope he proves us all wrong. Yep. But just like Greg Cosell says, if you see it, you got to say it. Yep. And my man has struggled this last little bit, man. It's been really, really, really ugly. So again, Godsmack, thank you for the support, buddy. We really, really appreciate it. Also want to again, give a special thanks to Mike Hebring for the super chat. I don't think I missed anybody else. All of our YouTube members, thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. You guys are absolutely awesome. So we're going to get out of here. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about any other news we got, and we'll come up with some good topics, and we'll let you guys kind of steer the ship as well. So, again, special shout-out and thanks to Old Southern Barbecue Smokehouse becoming the official sponsor of Packernet Podcast. Really excited about that partnership. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world, and go Pack Go.
The power sweep. Actually, it's the lead play in our offense.
Tell the tackle, take the defensive end if he's over him. If he's not, you drive down the first man who's inside. Pull back and get him. Take the first man outside the offensive tackle. no one shows, go right by this and field inside. If the YN has the linebacker taken out, he cuts inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. If you look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here and try to run this play in the alley.